The fluorescent lights of Starbase Epsilon flickered ominously, casting eerie shadows along the curved metal walls. Commander Naya Voss stood her ground, her emerald eyes locked onto the towering figure before her. The Kraxar warrior, easily twice her size, loomed menacingly. Its iridescent scales shimmered under the artificial light, four muscular arms flexing in anticipation. Naya's hand hovered near her holstered plasma pistol, but she knew drawing it would only escalate the situation. The tense standoff had drawn a small crowd of onlookers, a mix of human crew members and various alien species who called Starbase Epsilon home. "Stand down," Naya commanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "This is a peaceful station. Whatever grievance you have, we can discuss it civilly." The Kraxar's multifaceted eyes narrowed, a low growl emanating from its throat. "Peaceful," it spat, mandibles clicking in agitation. "Your kind speaks of peace while encroaching on our territories. The Kraxar Empire will not stand for such disrespect." Naya took a measured breath, acutely aware of the delicate diplomatic situation. The recent expansion of human colonies had indeed brought them closer to Kraxar space, but official channels were working to negotiate borders and trade agreements. This warrior's presence on the station was unexpected and potentially disastrous. "I understand your concerns," Naya said, maintaining eye contact with the agitated alien. "But attacking a neutral outpost won't solve anything. Let's talk." Her words were cut short as the Kraxar lunged forward with startling speed. One of its massive hands closed around Naya's throat, lifting her off the ground effortlessly. Gasps and shouts erupted from the gathered crowd, but no one dared intervene against the formidable alien. Naya clawed at the vice-like grip, struggling to breathe. Her combat training kicked in, and she drove her knee hard into the Kraxar's midsection. The blow connected, but the alien's tough hide absorbed most of the impact. It barely flinched, its grip tightening further. Just as spots began to dance at the edges of Naya's vision, a calm voice cut through the chaos. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." The Kraxar's head swiveled, its attention drawn to the newcomer. Captain Darius Wren stood a few meters away, his posture relaxed but radiating an unmistakable air of authority. His steely grey eyes assessed the situation with a tactician's precision. "This doesn't concern you, human," the Kraxar growled, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in its stance. Darius took a step forward, his movements deliberate. "Oh, but it does. You see, the woman you're currently strangling, she's my wife." A ripple of surprise passed through the onlookers. Naya and Darius had kept their relationship discreet, prioritizing professionalism in their respective roles aboard Starbase Epsilon. The Kraxar's grip loosened slightly, allowing Naya to gasp for air. Its compound eyes darted between the two humans, recalculating the situation. "Your mate or not, it changes nothing," the alien declared, though with less conviction than before. The Kraxar demand. In a blur of motion, Darius closed the distance. His hand shot out, fingers pressing against a specific point on the Kraxar's neck with surgical precision. The alien's eyes widened in shock, its limbs suddenly growing slack. Naya dropped to the floor, coughing and massaging her bruised throat. The Kraxar staggered backward, disoriented. What did you do to me?" It slurred, struggling to coordinate its movements. Darius stood between the alien and Naya, his voice low and dangerous. "A little trick I picked up during the Orion conflict. Your species has a rather interesting nerve cluster just beneath those impressive scales. I'd suggest you take a moment to reconsider your actions." Naya rose to her feet, her breathing ragged but eyes blazing with determination. She placed a hand on Darius's shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of their partnership, before addressing the Kraxar. "We don't want conflict with your people," she said firmly. "But make no mistake, we will defend ourselves if provoked. Now, let's start this conversation over. What exactly brought you to Starbase Epsilon?" The Kraxar swayed unsteadily, its bravado deflated. It glanced around at the crowd, now murmuring with a mix of awe and apprehension. Realizing it was outnumbered and outmaneuvered, the aliens' posture sagged in defeat. Our scouts reported human ships near the Valen Nebula, it admitted grudgingly. Ancient Kraxar ruins lie hidden there. We feared you sought to plunder our heritage. Darius and Naya exchanged a look of understanding. The pieces were falling into place. The Kraxar's aggression stemmed from fear and misunderstanding rather than pure malice. I give you my word as a captain of the United Earth Fleet, Darius said sullenly, we have no designs on your cultural artifacts. Our presence in the nebula is purely scientific. We're studying the unusual radiation patterns in the region. The Kraxar's multiple arms twitched, a sign of internal conflict. You speak truthfully. Naya nodded, her voice softening. We do. In fact, I believe this presents an opportunity for cooperation. Our scientists would be fascinated to learn about your people's history in the nebula. Perhaps a joint expedition could benefit both our species. A tense moment passed as the Kraxar processed this offer. Then, slowly, its aggressive stance relaxed. I may have acted hastily, it conceded. Your proposal intrigues me, humans. Perhaps there is more to your kind than we believed. As the immediate danger passed, Darius signaled for medical personnel to approach. Let's get you both checked out, he said, his tone professional once more. Then we can discuss the details of this potential collaboration in a more appropriate setting. The crowd began to disperse, the excitement of the confrontation giving way to excited chatter about the possibilities of human Kraxar cooperation. Naya caught Darius' eye, a silent conversation passing between them. They had navigated a potential diplomatic disaster, turning it into an opportunity for growth and understanding. As they made their way to the medical bay, flanked by curious onlookers and a somewhat chastened Kraxar, both Naya and Darius knew that this was only the beginning. The stars held countless challenges for humanity, but with quick thinking, compassion, and a willingness to reach across the divide of species, there was hope for a brighter future among the cosmos. The soft hum of medical scanners filled the air as Naya sat on the edge of an examination bed, her throat still tender from the Kraxar's grip. Darius stood nearby, his posture relaxed but his eyes alert, constantly assessing their surroundings. The Kraxar warrior, now identified as Krell, sat awkwardly on a reinforced chair designed for larger species, looking decidedly less menacing under the bright lights of Starbase Epsilon's medical bay. Dr. Eloin Sark, the station's chief medical officer, ran a final scan over Naya's neck. Her silvery hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her violet eyes, a telltale sign of her mixed human Andorian heritage, flickered with concern. You're lucky, Dr. Sark said, lowering the scanner. No lasting damage, but you'll have some impressive bruising for a few days. I'd recommend taking it easy, but... She trailed off with a knowing smile. Commander Voss wasn't exactly known for taking it easy. Naya nodded, her voice slightly hoarse. Thank you, Doctor. What about our guest? All eyes turned to Krell, who shifted uncomfortably under the scrutiny. Dr. Sark approached the Kraxar, her movements calm and professional, despite the alien's earlier aggression. The nerve pinch didn't cause any permanent harm, she reported after a quick scan. Though I must say, Captain Wren, I'm impressed you knew about that particular weakness in Kraxar physiology. It's not common knowledge. Darius' expression remained neutral, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, a hint of a past not often discussed. Let's just say I've had some interesting experiences in my career. Krell's multifaceted eyes narrowed, reassessing the human captain. You are more than you appear, Darius Wren. Your kind often seems soft, fragile. But you, the Kraxar's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. You have the spirit of a warrior. We all have hidden depths, Darius replied evenly. Now, I believe we were about to discuss your concerns about the Valen Nebula. As if on cue, the medical bay's doors slid open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Lara Tivran strode in, her long robes shimmering with an iridescence that seemed to catch non-existent light. The Elaran diplomat's ethereal beauty was matched only by her razor-sharp intellect, both of which had proven invaluable in navigating the complex web of interstellar politics. "I came as soon as I heard," Lara said, her melodic voice tinged with concern. Her gaze swept over the room, taking in the unlikely gathering. "It seems we have quite the situation on our hands." Naya stood, wincing slightly but determined to present a strong front. "Ambassador Tivran, your timing is impeccable. We were just about to delve into the heart of the matter." Lyra nodded, her attention focusing on Krell. "I must say, it's unusual to find a Kraxar warrior so far from your empire's borders, particularly one acting without official sanction." Krell's scales rippled, a sign of agitation. "How did you—" "Come now," Lyra interrupted gently. "If this were an official diplomatic mission, you would have announced your presence long before resorting to physical confrontation. No, you're here on your own initiative, driven by something personal." The medical bay fell silent as all eyes turned to Krell. The Kraxar's imposing form seemed to deflate slightly, its earlier bravado giving way to a mix of shame and desperation. "The ruins in the Valen Nebula," Krell began, voice low. "They are more than just remnants of our past. They hold the key to our future." The alien's eyes darted between the assembled humans and Lyra. "Our species is dying." A collective intake of breath filled the room. Darius stepped forward, his tactical mind already racing. "Explain." Krell's multiple arms gestured in agitation. "A genetic defect, long dormant in our population, has begun to manifest. Each generation, fewer of our eggs hatch. Those that do often suffer from debilitating mutations." The warrior's voice grew heavy with emotion. "Our scientists believe the answer lies in our ancestral home, the planet our ancestors fled millennia ago when its star began to die. The ruins in the Valen Nebula are our last link to that world." Naya and Darius exchanged a look, years of shared experiences allowing them to communicate volumes in a single glance. Lyra's expression remained impassive, but her eyes shimmered with a depth of understanding that hinted at centuries of diplomatic experience. "So when you saw human ships near the nebula," Naya said softly, "you feared we might inadvertently destroy your only hope of salvation." Krell nodded, mandibles clicking in distress. "I could not stand by and watch my people's future be threatened. I acted rashly, driven by fear and desperation." The room fell silent as the weight of the revelation settled over them. It was Darius who finally broke the tension, his voice filled with quiet determination. "You're not alone in this, Krell," he said, stepping closer to the Kraxar. "Humanity has faced its share of existential threats. We've learned that our greatest strength lies not in aggression, but in cooperation." Lyra nodded, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Indeed, the Elaran people have long believed that the tapestry of the universe is woven from the threads of all sentient life. To allow one thread to unravel diminishes us all." Naya stood, ignoring the lingering pain in her throat. "We have some of the finest scientific minds in the galaxy aboard this station. Combined with your knowledge of Kraxar biology and the ruins themselves, I believe we stand a real chance of finding the solution your people need." Krell looked from face to face, compound eyes wide with a mix of disbelief and hope. "You would help us after I attacked you?" "That's what we do," Darius said simply. "It's who we are." As the gravity of the moment settled over the room, alarms suddenly blared to life. Red emergency lights bathed the medical bay in an ominous glow. Darius's comm unit crackled urgently. "Captain Wren to the bridge immediately. Unidentified vessels have entered the system. They're on an intercept course with the station." Darius's expression hardened, years of command experience taking over. "Looks like our problems just got a lot more complicated. Naya, with me. Ambassador Tivran, please say with Krell. We may need your diplomatic skills before this is over." He turned to the Kraxar warrior. I hope you're ready to trust us, because I have a feeling we're all going to need to work together to get through whatever's coming." As they rushed from the medical bay, the station quaking beneath their feet, one thing was clear: the confrontation in the corridor was just the beginning of a much larger and more dangerous adventure. The bridge of Starbase Epsilon erupted into controlled chaos as Darius and Naya burst through the doors. Tactical officers barked status reports, while sensor technicians worked feverishly at their stations. The main view screen dominated the far wall, displaying a menacing array of sleek, predatory ships rapidly approaching the station. Lieutenant Commander Zara Vex, the station's half-trilled tactical officer, looked up from her console, her spotted skin pale with tension. "Captain, we've got 6 vessels of unknown configuration closing fast. They're not responding to hails, and their weapons are hot." Darius strode to the command chair, his mind already racing through potential scenarios. "Shields up. Bring all defensive systems online, but hold fire unless I give the order. We don't want to start a war if we can avoid it." Naya took her place at the ops station, fingers flying over the controls. "Sir, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from the lead vessel. It doesn't match anything in our database." The bridge fell silent as a crackling transmission cut through the air. A harsh, guttural voice filled the room, its tone dripping with malice. "Attention, human vermin and Kraxar traitors. This is Warlord Vexcor of the Draknar Dominion. You have trespassed in our domain and conspired with our enemies. Surrender the Kraxar criminal and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your annihilation." Darius' eyes narrowed, his jaw set in determination. "Draknar? I thought they were nothing more than raiders and pirates." "Looks like they've upgraded," Naya muttered, her hands never leaving the console. "Captain, their weapons technology is unlike anything we've encountered. Our shields may not hold against a concentrated assault." The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Darius knew they were outgunned and outnumbered, but surrender wasn't an option. His mind raced, searching for a solution that would keep his crew and the station's civilians safe. "Open a channel," he ordered, rising from his chair. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the sneering face of Warlord Vexicor. The Draknar's scarred visage was a testament to countless battles, his cybernetic eye glowing with malevolent intent. "This is Captain Darius Wren of Starbase Epsilon. We are a peaceful research outpost and have no quarrel with the Draknar Dominion. I must insist that you power down your weapons and state your grievances through proper diplomatic channels." Vexcor's laugh was like grinding metal. "Diplomacy? You humans are as naive as you are weak. The Kraxar thought they could hide their secrets from us, but we know all about the ruins in the Valen Nebula. Their ancestral technology will make the Draknar unstoppable, and you will not stand in our way." Naya's eyes widened as the pieces fell into place. She leaned close to Darius, keeping her voice low. "They must have intercepted Krell's transmission. They're after the same thing the Kraxar are searching for." Darius nodded almost imperceptibly, his expression never wavering as he addressed Vexicor. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. We have no Kraxar criminal aboard, nor do we possess any information about these ruins you seek." The Draknar warlord's cybernetic eye pulsed angrily. "Lies. Our spies have confirmed the Kraxar's presence. You have one final chance to surrender before we open fire." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Darius turned to his crew, his voice steady and determined. "All right, people. This is what we've trained for. Zara, I want every weapon we've got ready to fire, but wait for my signal. Naya, work with engineering to reroute all non-essential power to the shields. And someone get Ambassador Tivran and our Kraxar guest up here now. We're going to need all the help we can get." As the crew sprang into action, Darius felt a familiar rush of adrenaline. This was far from the first impossible situation he faced, but the stakes had never been higher. The lives of everyone on Starbase Epsilon hung in the balance, not to mention the potential fate of the Kraxar species and the balance of power in this sector of space. Minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness. The Draknar ships moved into attack formation, their weapons glowing with ominous energy. Just as Darius was about to give the order to fire, the bridge doors slid open. Ambassador Lyra Tivran glided in, her ethereal presence a stark contrast to the tension-filled atmosphere. Behind her lumbered Krell, the Kraxar warrior's massive frame barely fitting through the doorway. "Captain," Lyra began, her melodic voice tinged with urgency, "I believe we may have a solution, but it will require trust on all sides." Darius raised an eyebrow, acutely aware of the Draknar ships looming ever closer on the viewscreen. "I'm all ears, Ambassador, but make it quick." Krell stepped forward, mandibles clicking nervously. The ruins in the Valen Nebula, they're not just a repository of Kraxar history. They contain technology far beyond anything my people currently possess, technology that could save us, or destroy us all in the wrong hands. "And let me guess," Naya interjected, "the Draknar want that technology for themselves." Krell nodded solemnly. "They've been raiding Kraxar outposts for years, searching for clues. If they gain control of the ruins, no world in this sector will be safe." Lyra's eyes shimmered with an ancient wisdom. "Captain, I propose a radical course of action. We must allow the Draknar to board the station." A chorus of protests erupted from the bridge crew, but Darius held up a hand for silence. "Explain, Ambassador." "The Draknar's arrogance is their weakness," Lyra continued. "If we appear to surrender, they will lower their guard. Meanwhile, we can use the station's internal defenses to our advantage. With the element of surprise, we may be able to capture their leaders and force a withdrawal." Darius stroked his chin thoughtfully. It was a risky plan, but their options were limited. He turned to Krell, his gaze intense. "If we do this, we're putting a lot of trust in you. Are you willing to stand with us, even against your own people if necessary?" Krell straightened to his full, impressive height. "You have shown me the true meaning of honor, Captain Wren. The Kraxar Empire has much to learn from humanity. I swear by the bones of my ancestors, I will fight by your side." A warning klaxon blared, cutting off any further discussion. Zara's voice was tight with tension. "Captain, the Draknar ships are powering up their main weapons. It's now or never." Darius took a deep breath, feeling the weight of command settle on his shoulders. In that moment, he knew that his next decision would shape the fate of not just Starbase Epsilon, but potentially the entire sector. With a nod to Lyra and a reassuring glance at Naya, he squared his shoulders and gave the order that would change everything. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare to repel boarders." The tense atmosphere on Starbase Epsilon's bridge was palpable as Darius's order echoed through the station-wide comm system. Crew members and civilians alike steeled themselves to the coming storm, their training and resolve about to be put to the ultimate test. Darius turned to Naya, his voice low but firm. "Initiate Protocol Omega. Let's give our guests a warm welcome they won't forget." Naya nodded, her fingers dancing across the control panel. Throughout the station, hidden defense systems hummed to life, ready to be activated at a moment's notice. Meanwhile, Krell stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the tactical display. "Captain," the Kraxar rumbled, "my people have developed technologies to counter Draknar weapons. If you'll allow me access to your shield controls, I may be able to bolster your defenses." Darius hesitated for a split second, years of caution warring with a desperate need for any advantage. But as he met Krell's compound eyes, he saw something he recognized, the unwavering determination of a warrior with everything to lose. With a quick nod, he gestured to an open console. "Do it," Darius commanded. "Naya, work with Krell. Let's show these Draknar that humanity and the Kraxar aren't as weak as they think." As Krell and Naya huddled over the shield controls, Ambassador Lyra Tivran approached Darius, her ethereal presence a stark contrast to the frantic energy of the bridge. "Captain," she said softly, "there's something you should know. The Eloran Conclave has long suspected that the ruins in the Valen Nebula are more than just Kraxar artifacts. They may be remnants of an ancient civilization that once spanned this entire sector, a civilization that vanished mysteriously eons ago. Darius' eyes widened at the implication. Are you saying that whatever the Draknar are after could be even more powerful than we thought? Lyra nodded solemnly, which is precisely why we cannot allow it to fall into their hands. The balance of power in this region could be irrevocably altered. Before Darius could respond, the view screen crackled to life, revealing Warlord Vexcor's scarred visage once more. "Time's up, humans," the Draknar snarled. "Prepare to be boarded. Resist, and we'll turn your precious station into space dust." Darius straightened, meeting the Warlord's gaze with steely resolve. "We hear you, Warlord. With powering down our weapons as we speak, you may commence your boarding operations." Vexcor's cybernetic eye pulsed with suspicion, but the lure of easy victory seemed to override his caution. "A wise decision, Captain. Perhaps your species isn't as foolish as I thought." As the transmission cut off, Darius turned to his crew. "This is it, people. Remember your training and trust in each other. We're not just fighting for ourselves today, we're fighting for the future of this entire sector." Moments later, the station shuddered as Draknar boarding pods latched onto its outer hull. Alarms blared as the invaders began cutting through airlocks and maintenance hatches, but Starbase Epsilon was far from defenseless. "Now," Darius shouted. Naya's fingers flew across her console, activating Protocol Omega. Throughout the station, hidden force fields sprang to life, trapping groups of Draknar invaders in corridors and cargo bays. Stun gas flooded sealed sections, incapacitating the would-be conquerors before they could even draw their weapons. On the bridge, Krell worked feverishly at the shield controls, his multiple arms a blur of motion. "Captain, I've managed to recalibrate your shields to emit a frequency that disrupts Draknar energy weapons. It won't hold forever, but it should buy us some time." Darius nodded grimly. "Good work, Krell. Zara, status report." Lieutenant Commander Vex's fingers danced across her tactical display. "We've neutralized approximately 60% of the boarding parties, sir. But the Draknar on the lower decks are putting up heavy resistance. They're better armed than we anticipated." "Then it's time we show them what we're made of," Darius declared. "Naya, you have the bridge. I'm leading a team to repel the invaders personally." Naya's eyes widened in protest, but Krell interrupted before she could speak. "I will join you, Captain. My strength and knowledge of Draknar tactics may prove useful." Darius nodded, a grim smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I was hoping you'd say that. Ambassador Tivran, I trust you can assist Naya in coordinating our defenses from here." Lyra inclined her head gracefully. "Of course, Captain. May the wisdom of the ancients guide your path." As Darius and Krell made their way to the turbolift, the captain paused, looking back at his crew, human and alien alike, united in the face of a common threat. "Remember," he said, his voice carrying across the bridge, "we're not just fighting for ourselves today. We're fighting for a future where different species can work together, where understanding trumps fear, and where the wonders of the universe are explored in peace." With those words hanging in the air, Darius and Krell stepped into the turbolift, descending into the chaos below. The unlikely duo, a human captain and a Kraxar warrior, stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. As they emerged onto the embattled lower decks, the sound of energy weapons and shouted orders filled the air. Draknar invaders, their armor gleaming and eyes glowing with cybernetic enhancements, pushed forward against the station's defenders. Darius drew his phaser, its familiar weight comforting in his hand. Beside him, Krell unsheathed a wicked-looking blade that hummed with barely contained energy. "Ready to show these Draknar the true meaning of strength?" Darius asked, a hint of a smile playing at his lips despite the dire situation. Krell's mandibles clicked in what might have been the Kraxar equivalent of a grin. "I thought you'd never ask, Captain." Together, they charged into the fray, a symbol of unity and defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. As human and Kraxar fought side by side, a new chapter in galactic history was being written, one of cooperation, courage, and the indomitable spirit of those who dared to reach across the stars and forge alliances in the darkest of times. The battle for Starbase Epsilon had only just begun, but already the tides of fate were shifting, carried on the wings of an unlikely partnership that would reshape the very fabric of interstellar relations. The corridors of Starbase Epsilon's lower decks had become a war zone. Acrid smoke filled the air, punctuated by the sharp ozone smell of discharged energy weapons. Darius and Krell moved as one, their disparate fighting styles blending into a seamless dance of destruction against the Draknar invaders. Darius's phaser sang, precise shots finding gaps in the enemy's armor. Beside him, Krell was a whirlwind of lethal efficiency, his multiple arms wielding both traditional Kraxar blades and commandeered Draknar weapons. The unlikely duo pushed forward, rallying scattered groups of station security and civilians who had taken up arms to defend their home. "Captain," a voice called out. Ensign Talia Chen, her uniform torn and smudged with soot, emerged from a side passage. "We've managed to seal off Deck 12, but the Draknar are using some kind of phase-shifting technology to bypass our force fields." Darius's mind raced, piecing together the tactical puzzle. They must have reverse-engineered Kraxar tech from their previous raids. "Krell, any ideas on how to counter it?" The Kraxar warrior paused, mandibles clicking in thought. "There may be a way. The phase shifters rely on a specific quantum frequency. If we can isolate it, we might be able to create a feedback loop and overload their systems." "Do it," Darius nodded. "Ensign Chen, gather every engineer and science officer you can find. We need to recalibrate the station's deflector array to emit a broad-spectrum pulse." As Chen darted off to carry out her orders, Darius's comm badge crackled to life. Naya's voice came through, tense but controlled. "Darius, we've got a new problem. The Draknar fleet is repositioning. I think they're preparing for a full assault on the station." Darius's jaw clenched. They were running out of time. "Understood. Keep our shields up and continue to coordinate with Krell's modifications. We need to buy more time." Suddenly, the deck beneath their feet shuddered violently. Emergency klaxons blared as a new, more urgent alarm joined the cacophony. "Hull breach on Deck 15. Zora's voice cut through the noise. "Draknar boarders have broken through. They're headed for the main reactor." Darius exchanged a grim look with Krell. If the Draknar took control of the reactor, they could destroy the entire station, or worse, use it as a bargaining chip to force surrender. "Change of plans," Darius announced, his voice carrying to all nearby defenders. "We make our stand at the reactor. Everyone who can fight with me. The rest of you, fall back to the upper decks and assist with evacuation procedures." As they raced towards the reactor chamber, Darius's mind whirled with possibilities. They were outgunned and outnumbered, but he'd faced worse odds before. What they needed was a game-changer, something to turn the tide decisively in their favor. The reactor chamber was a cavernous space, dominated by the pulsing core of energy that powered the entire station. As Darius and his makeshift army poured in, they found themselves face-to-face with a group of Draknar elites, led by none other than Warlord Vexkor himself. "Ah, the valiant captain," Vexkor sneered, his cybernetic eye glowing malevolently. "Come to witness the fall of your precious station firsthand." Darius stepped forward, his phaser aimed squarely at the warlord's chest. "It's not too late to end this peacefully, Vexkor. Whatever you think you'll gain from the Valen Nebula ruins, it's not worth the lives of your people." The Draknar's laugh was like grinding metal. "Peace, you humans and your weakness. The strong take what they want, and the Draknar will take everything." With a roar, Vexkor charged forward, his massive frame augmented by cybernetic enhancements. Darius braced himself for impact, but Krell intervened, meeting the Draknar warlord head-on in a clash of titanic proportions. All around them, the chamber erupted into chaos. Humans and Kraxar fought side by side against the Draknar invaders, the fate of Starbase Epsilon hanging in the balance. Darius found himself locked in combat with a Draknar lieutenant, their weapons clashing in a deadly dance. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Krell and Vexico grappling near the reactor core, their struggle mirroring the larger conflict that raged around them. Suddenly, Darius's comm badge crackled to life once more. Ambassador Lyra's ethereal voice cut through the din of battle. "Captain, we've made a breakthrough." The Elaran archives contained information about the ancient civilization from the Valen Nebula. Their technology operated on principles of harmony and unity, the exact opposite of the Draknar's aggressive assimilation. Darius's mind raced, even as he parried another blow from his opponent. "What are you saying, Ambassador?" "The station's reactor," Lyra continued, excitement evident in her voice. "If we can modulate its output to match the frequency of the ancient technology, we may be able to neutralize the Draknar's weapons and cybernetic enhancements." It was a long shot, but at this point, Darius was willing to try anything. "Naya, did you get that?" he called out, ducking under a vicious swipe from the Draknar lieutenant. "Already on it," came the reply. "Rerouting power now. Stand by for energy pulse in 3, 2, 1. The reactor core flared with blinding intensity. A wave of energy pulsed outward, washing over friend and foe alike. For a moment, everything seemed to stand still. Then, chaos erupted anew. Draknar weapons sputtered and died. Cybernetic implants sparked and malfunctioned. The invaders, suddenly finding themselves without their technological advantages, faltered in confusion and fear. Darius seized the moment. "Now," he shouted, "push them back." With renewed vigor, the defenders of Starbase Epsilon surged forward. Humans and Kraxar, united in purpose, drove the Draknar invaders back step by step. In the center of the chamber, Krell finally gained the upper hand against Vexico. With a mighty roar, the Kraxar warrior lifted the Draknar warlord bodily and hurled him against the chamber wall. Vexico slumped to the ground, his once fearsome presence diminished without his cybernetic enhancements. He looked up at Darius and Krell, who now stood side by side, with a mixture of hatred and disbelief. "Impossible," the warlord growled. How did you?" Darius stepped forward, his voice filled with quiet authority. "You underestimated us, Vexico. Not just humans, but the power of different species working together. It's over." As the last of the Draknar resistance crumbled, Darius allowed himself a moment of cautious optimism. They had won the battle for Starbase Epsilon, but he knew that the real challenge, forging a lasting peace in this tumultuous sector of space, was only just beginning. The aftermath of the battle left Starbase Epsilon scared but standing. As the adrenaline of combat faded, the monumental task of rebuilding and reconciliation loomed large. Captain Darius Wren stood in the observation lounge, gazing out at the stars, his reflection ghostly in the reinforced glass. The Draknar fleet hung motionless in space, disabled by the same energy pulse that had turned the tide of the ground battle. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and Naya entered, datapad in hand. "Damage reports are coming in," she said, moving to stand beside him. "We took a beating, but thanks to Krell's shield modifications, it could have been much worse." Darius nodded, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. "And the Draknar?" "Most have surrendered," Naya replied. "Without their cybernetic enhancements, their will to fight seems to have evaporated. Warlord Vexico is in custody, along with his top lieutenants." "Good," Darius said, turning to face her. "And what of our unlikely ally?" As if on cue, the door opened again. Krell ducked through, his massive frame still impressive even without the air of aggression that had initially surrounded him. Behind him glided Ambassador Lyra, her ethereal presence a calming influence in the room. "Captain," Krell rumbled, mandibles clicking in what Darius had come to recognize as a gesture of respect. "I bring news from my people. The Kraxar High Command has been informed of the Draknar threat and our cooperation." Darius raised an eyebrow. "And their response?" Krell's compound eyes seemed to shimmer with an emotion Darius couldn't quite place. "They are intrigued. The idea of alliance with other species is foreign to many, but the elders see the wisdom in it. They wish to open formal diplomatic channels with both humanity and the Elaran conclave." Ambassador Lyra stepped forward, her voice melodic yet tinged with gravity. "This is an unprecedented opportunity, Captain. The balance of power in this sector has been precarious for centuries. With the Draknar threat neutralized and the possibility of a human Kraxar-Elaran alliance, we stand on the brink of a new era of peace and cooperation." Darius nodded slowly, his tactical mind already racing through the implications. "And what of the ruins in the Valen Nebula? I doubt the Draknar were the only ones interested in that technology." Lyra's eyes shimmered with ancient wisdom. "You are correct, Captain, which is why I propose a joint expedition, human, Kraxar, and Elaran. Together, we can uncover the secrets of the ancient civilization and ensure that its power is used for the benefit of all, not the domination of one." Krell stepped forward, his massive form somehow less intimidating than before. "My people agree to this proposal. We have much to learn from one another, and perhaps in working together, we can find the cure my species so desperately needs." Darius looked from face to face, Naya, his partner in both love and duty, Krell, the warrior who had become an ally, and Lyra, the diplomat whose vision could reshape the stars. He felt the weight of the moment, the countless lives that would be affected by the decisions made here. "Very well," he said at last. "I'll inform Starfleet Command of our recommendation for this alliance. But before we get ahead of ourselves, we have a more immediate concern." He tapped his comm badge. "Security, please escort our guest to the observation lounge." Moments later, the doors slid open once more. 2 security officers entered, flanking a subdued Warlord Vexicor. The once imposing Draknar leader looked diminished without his cybernetic enhancements, his scarred face a map of bitterness and defeat. Darius approached him, his voice firm but not unkind. "Warlord Vexicor, you stand accused of unprovoked aggression against a peaceful station, attempted theft of protected artifacts, and numerous violations of interstellar law. What do you have to say for yourself?" Vexicor's organic eye narrowed, darting between the assembled faces. "You think this changes anything?" he snarled. "The Draknar will rise again. We will." "No," Darius interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. "The Draknar as you knew them are finished. But that doesn't mean your people are doomed." He gestured to the others in the room. "Look around you. Species that were once enemies now stand together. There is a place for the Draknar in this new alliance, but only if you're willing to change." Vexicor fell silent, the fight seeming to drain out of him. For the first time, uncertainty crept into his expression. Lyra stepped forward, her voice gentle. "The path of aggression has led your people to this moment, Warlord. But there is another way. Join us in exploring the ruins of the Valen Nebula. Help us understand the ancient technology that you sought to control. In doing so, you may find a new purpose for your people, one built on cooperation rather than conquest." The room held its breath as Vexicor wrestled with the choice before him. Centuries of Draknar tradition warred against the undeniable reality of his situation. Finally, he spoke, his voice hoarse. "And if I refuse?" Darius's expression hardened. "Then you'll be turned over to the Federation for trial, and your people will be left to find their own way in a galaxy that's moving beyond the need for your brand of warfare." Another long moment passed. Then, almost imperceptibly, Vexicor nodded. "Very well," he growled. "The Draknar will cooperate. For now." As the security officers led Vexicor away, Darius felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He turned to the others, a genuine smile breaking across his face. "Well," he said, "it looks like we have a lot of work ahead of us." Naya grinned, the expression lighting up her face. Just another day at Starbase Epsilon, right? Krell's mandibles clicked in what might have been a chuckle. If this is a typical day for you humans, I begin to understand how your species has survived this long. Lara's eyes twinkled with amusement and hope. The threads of fate have drawn us together, my friends. Now, it falls to us to weave a new tapestry for this sector of space. As they stood together, gazing out at the star-filled expanse, Darius felt a sense of possibility he hadn't experienced in years. The battle for Starbase Epsilon was over, but a new adventure was just beginning. One that would challenge them to bridge the gaps between cultures, to heal ancient wounds, and to forge a future built on understanding and mutual respect. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter as Starbase Epsilon, battered but unbroken, continued its eternal orbit. Within its walls, the seeds of a new galactic order had been planted, nurtured by the most unlikely of alliances. And as Darius Wren looked out at the vastness of space, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, human, Kraxar, Eloran, and perhaps even Draknar, united in the pursuit of a better tomorrow.